Hey there, welcome back to the channel. My name is Zach Renard. I'm the founder of Week2 PR, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about why your podcast interviews are not converting. So one of the things I see really often with people that come to us is that they're maybe getting on podcasts, but they are not leveraging them properly. They don't know how to use these podcasts that they are getting to convert into business, and there's an entire ecosystem behind it. But one of the things I tell to anyone we work with is 50% of the puzzle is getting on the podcast, but the other 50% is leveraging the podcast, using it, and a lot of people totally forget about that. So we're going to cover all that in today's video here. So a couple things that we'll be covering, we're going to be talking about turning podcast attention into conversion, using podcast content throughout your sales process, building a good call to action that actually helps you convert, and then amplifying your podcast authority across your entire brand. What happens when you do podcasts incorrectly is you appear on the podcast, nothing happens, revenue miss, and then directly you're like, hey, podcasting doesn't work. I can tell you it works. We've had clients that have made multiple six figures, even 7-figure pipeline deals just by getting on podcasts, but you need to use the appearances. It's very important. And probably one of the biggest misconceptions I have is podcast interviews, they don't fail because of the reach of a podcast. They fail because most of the guests don't maximize the value that they get from getting on a podcast. There's a couple things that we're going to be covering, but first off, pre-call assets, very important. Before the interview even happens, you should already be using your podcast interview strategically, sending short clips before calls, including podcast features in the newsletter, or even encouraging prospect to look you up so they can see all the social proof and credibility that you have in your space. Podcast clips are also a very easy way to use to pre-address objections that you might get from potential clients. And it does it in a non-salesy way, so that's a plus. So the same thing happens with when someone books a call. Whenever someone books a call, what you want to do is you want to have an FAQ / a confirmation page. So a lot of people are going to have a very simple confirmation page like, hey, thank you for booking a call. We'll talk to you soon. Then they just leave it at that. You want to go a little bit further. And what I like to do is whenever you go on podcasts, you want to make sure that you talk about things pre-addressing any objections, question that you're often getting from potential clients. The reason behind that is you then want to repurpose all those podcast appearances, and then you can use that within your sales process and marketing process. But what you can create is, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but you want to create an FAQ page that basically has a bunch of little videos that answer questions that your potential clients have. So directly when they booked a call, you're pre-addressing all the objection. They come on the call, they're pre-sold, very warm. They already have all the question answered, and you're not going to waste too much time going through the same thing and educating people on things that they can already see by looking at your videos. But the cool thing is those videos, you can use it from your podcast clip. You don't have to film a video like I'm filming now. You can use it directly from a podcast, because this even comes as a higher level of authority. You're on a podcast as an expert talking about something specific, and then you can use it in your FAQ page, confirmation page. A very popular one that I really like using and doing, and I recommend every client that we work with to do, is post-call efforts. So with podcasts, we talked about obviously repurposing the content, but one of the things that you can do is if you have someone, you get on a call, they don't close, they don't end up working with you at the end of the call, they came up with an objection or there's something holding them back and you weren't able to push them over the line. What you can do is obviously make sure to schedule a touch base call to have some next steps in place, but between that time, this is where you can send podcast episode. You can send little clips that address the things that they talk about to basically alleviate any objections they have. So when you get on that next call, those objections are being handled, but also they're hearing you on a podcast talk about these things, and they can see you as an expert and authority figure here. So very important that you do that. If you can do one thing, I definitely would recommend that you repurpose it into your sales and marketing process here. And a podcast appearance should not just be content, it should become a trust building asset throughout your entire sales process. Because the usual approach that most people do, they do the interview, they post once on LinkedIn, they move on, they don't do anything with that. It's probably the biggest mistake that you can do. Podcasts need to be leveraged, used, repurposed. There's so many different things that you can do. And we're obviously going to cover some of those, but those over here are probably going to be the most important ones here. But the very important part that we're going to be covering too is you want to make sure you have a strong CTA. You want to make sure you have a landing page. You want to make sure you have pre-call authority assets, and then you want to have a follow-up system in place. If you can have all these 4 little things, you'll be in good shape. So step number 1, you want to make sure that you build a call to action that actually converts. So we have some videos on the channel that talk about building a good call to action. But if you go on a podcast and it's, hey, just go on our website, check out our LinkedIn, that is not a strong call to action. You're going to go on a bunch of podcasts and you're not going to waste your time because people don't have a very specific action to take, and that is very important. So you want to make sure that when you have a call to action, one offer only, make it episode specific if you can, but also make sure to include some social proof within that. What I recommend as well is you create a dedicated landing page for the episode itself. So what you can do is you can create a specific landing page like / the Entrepreneur's Logbook podcast, which is my podcast. So whenever someone goes on that page, it's like, hey, you just heard me on the Entrepreneur's Logbook podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the conversation of Zach and I. We talked about this. Here's a couple of resources. You want to make it very straightforward, but you want to make it somewhat personalized. The person that listens to your appearance have a very specific call to action, very clear one action. Don't overwhelm them. And when they go to the landing page, they feel like there's this continuation of listening to the podcast and being on a landing page about the podcast and some next steps. So call to action, very important. You want to make sure you have that set before you start getting on the podcast. Step number 2, pre-call assets that do the selling for you. So before you even get on a call with a prospect, you want to make sure that you have some short form clips from past appearances that directly address some of the objections that prospect might have. And you can even send those to the person ahead of time. The FAQ confirmation page is really great. You should definitely do that first, but those are some other assets you can do. Newsletter mention is another one. So whenever you have someone book a call with you, oftentimes what you'll do is you'll enroll them into a newsletter or a pre-call flow, or like a pre-call sequence. What you can do is within that newsletter, you can then mention like, hey, check out this appearance. I appeared on this podcast specifically. We talked about this. So directly, people are going to see you from a position of authority. They can go check out the podcast, which positions you even more as an authority figure because that is third-party validation. And then also authority and SEO presence. What you can do is you can even add like a little lines, kind of like, hey, look me up on Google. There's a couple podcasts there that I talk about this. Again, authority, credibility puts you at the top here. So we talked about to book a call confirmation page. So what you want to do is you want to turn your thank you page into a trust machine. So a lot of people are just going to have the basic, you're booked, we'll see you soon message. But what you want to do is you want to create an FAQ video page pulled directly from your podcast appearances. So what I recommend is go into your note taker or anything like that from past sales call, maybe whether it's you or your sales team. And what you want to do, download the entire transcript from maybe the past 20, 30 calls or so, throw that into ChatGPT or Claude, and you want to ask it what are some common questions, objections, things that are making people not purchase, or maybe that are stopping them from moving forward, or some common question we just get on the sales call. And what you want to do is you want to go ahead and whenever you go on podcasts, you want to pre-address those things in a very natural fashion, natural manner, because what we can do afterwards is you can then go take these podcasts, repurpose into content, and then you can throw that into your FAQ confirmation page. So when people book a call directly, they can listen to these little videos here, and it's you on a podcast from an authority position answering all the questions that they're already asking themselves. So when they jump on the call with you, they're already warm. You already answered all their question. There's not going to be too many objections left out to work with here. And I can tell you from experience, people who listen to these videos are going to be much more warm coming into the call. We've done this a lot of time, and I can tell you it's really great when someone watches that because they know exactly what you do. They know how you do it, and it answers a lot of questions that they might have had earlier. And we talked about like newsletter, but what a lot of founders are going to do, they're going to send a generate confirmation emails and like, hey, we'll talk to you soon. What you should do instead is drop a podcast episode into your nurturing sequence. It's like, hey, by the way, I was recently on this podcast. We talked about this, and this is exactly what most people are dealing with, this specific pain point. So when they look at that, they see as like a recognized expert, not just like another service provider. So the goal is to handle objection with podcast episode, not more pitching. So what you want to do is, again, take that Claude, ChatGPT, note down all the objections that you're getting. Find the episode that maybe you've already filmed, and then try to find that little moment where you talk about that specific thing, and then you can send it naturally. It's like, hey, Zach, you mentioned X. Funny enough, I was just on a podcast that talked about this. I thought you'd find it useful. Here's a little like a little link to go check that out. So it's more friendly. It's less like salesy. It's less like, oh, like buy now. It's like, hey, quick video here. I think this could be valuable to you. I think this is going to answer one of the questions that you had and that you were not too sure about. Check it out. So it's not salesy. It's way more effective in my experience. Another thing that I like, and I will tell you from experience because we've A/B tested this and it works very well. So if you're doing LinkedIn outbound outreach, like business development, reaching out to potential clients, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're amplifying your profile and making sure that you have all the necessary pieces in place. So when you do reach out, people look at your profile, they see you as an expert directly, and they are more inclined to work with. We've tested this ourselves, where I personally have a lot of content. I have a featured section with a New York Times Square billboard, an entrepreneur feature, my own podcast, and like a bunch of other things. And we've tested this, me versus someone on our team doing outreach with basically like nothing. And I can tell you there was like a 2-3x in difference in like reply rate, which is crazy. And it just shows that if you do it properly, you have all this content and all this credibility building asset, you will get more reply, which will lead to more meetings. So very important. Couple pieces, featured section, make sure that you have 3 little featured section items. I recommend anything that will show credibility or anything like that. Typically what I do is have a link to one of the podcast appearances that you had. Make sure you have a little video clip of yourself speaking so people can hear you, they can see you, they can see that you're not just someone spamming a lot of messages that are not actually putting themselves out there. And then if you have a website or landing page, I typically add that too. So you have like a direct call to action that someone can take. And then also sharing clip as like content. So obviously make sure to always continue to share clips of the podcast that you've been on, so people, when they look at your profile, they see a bunch of content being educated, and it just shows that you're an expert, you're a thought leader. And this is going to help you with reply rates. We've tested this, I can tell you so many times, it works. So you definitely should do it. And in terms of reactivation, I can tell you we've had a lot of clients where they would use podcast appearances or even like press, because we are a PR firm, we've gone on them press in the past, and they would just use all of this and share it on their LinkedIn, Instagram, etc. And they would literally have people reach out back to them because they haven't spoken to them in a while, and then they see authority building content, they're talking about a certain thing that can help them. It just helps like reactivate the conversation, but obviously you're also getting a lot of content that you can then use on social. So very important, because when you're posting content, it can also get in front of cold audiences, people that don't know you. And if you're good at what you do, which you probably do if you're getting on podcasts as an expert, people might want to work with you. And if they see this content, you have a clear call to action, they might just want to reach out and work with you. So again, your podcast appearances are a sales system. You need to start using them like one, and not just something that you do for fun and you don't use or leverage properly. So the main points to remember is you want to have a call to action and a landing page, one focused destination for every episode, pre-call assets, clips, emails, things that handle objections easily. Confirmation page, probably one of the easiest lever pull that you can do. It helps to build trust before the call starts, and it makes people more warm whenever they get on the sales call. Post-call follow-up, you want to make sure that you are sending episodes to help close a deal. If you can send some clips that address some objections after the call, that's another +1. And then LinkedIn and social, distribute it everywhere where your ICP lives. And then when we're doing outbound outreach, this is going to help you a lot to book some calls here. And I know I mentioned LinkedIn outreach, but keep in mind, if you're doing cold email outreach as well, that's another thing. You might get people that will look you up on LinkedIn to know who you are, sending them a cold email. I can tell you from experience, we've booked, I believe, around like 1,500 calls over time since launching the company. And a lot of people are going to look you up. They want to see who you are, what you're about. If you receive a random cold email out of the blue, I don't know about you, but what I do is I look up the email address, I look up their LinkedIn, I look at their website, I'm like, okay, who is this person? Do they have someone valuable to offer? And if you're receiving a cold email out of the blue, the first thing that you're probably asking yourself is this person real? Is this person credible? So you want to be able to pre-address that. So if you have a lot of content on your LinkedIn that shows you're an expert, people are automatically going to trust you, and then they move on to the next step, which is like, okay, is this offer relevant to me? But if you can get that first step out of the way, you'll be in amazing shape here. So if you're ready to turn your appearances into conversion, apply the frameworks that we talked into this video, and then you can triple to quadruple the conversion with each of your podcast appearances, and make sure that you are getting more value out of them here. Again, my name is Zach Bernard. I'm the founder of WeFuture PR. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, review. And if you'd like someone to take over this entire process, get you booked on podcasts, create content for you, repurpose the entire thing, we do this for dozens of clients, and I've booked over 1,500 podcast appearances, booked and built relationships with over 750 podcast hosts here. So there's going to be a link in the description, WeFuture.com. There's going to be a little button that's going to say book a call. Head over there, book a call, and yeah, talk to you soon.